Mind's eye of the Kagura. Now we're getting into the heavyweight division of sensing techniques. The mind's eye of the Kagura is what happens when you take everything you thought was impressive about sensory abilities and crank it up to 11. This is Karin's signature technique, and I need you to understand something right off the bat. This ability surpasses dojutsu. We're talking about a sensing technique that outperforms actual eye powers. Let that sink in for a second. Here's how it works. Karin closes her physical eyes and opens what she calls her mind's eye. The range on this thing is absolutely absurd. We're talking several dozen kilometers in every direction. That's not just sensing someone's presence either. She can track specific individuals across that entire range, pinpoint their exact location, follow their movements in real time, and here's where it gets crazy. She can read the characteristics of their chakra like a book. What kind of chakra nature do they have? She knows. Are they molding chakra right now to prepare a jutsu? She sees it happening. Is someone lying to her face? The fluctuations in their chakra give them away instantly. But the real kicker, the thing that makes this technique genuinely broken, is the genjutsu detection. Karin can sense if someone is under genjutsu, including herself. Think about how insane that is. Genjutsu works by manipulating your chakra system without you knowing. The whole point is that you don't realize you're trapped, but Karin's mind's eye perceives those manipulations as they happen. She's essentially immune to one of the most dangerous forms of attack in the entire shinobi arsenal. Now here's my hot take, and I know some of you are going to come for me. I genuinely believe this technique is more versatile than the Byakugan for reconnaissance missions. The Byakugan has its advantages, sure, but that range and chakra analysis? Come on. Well, I need to see if anyone actually disagrees with this. Rain Tiger at Will technique. This is it. This is the one that completely redefines what's possible with sensory ninjutsu. The Rain Tiger at Will technique isn't just a sensing ability, it's a surveillance state wrapped in a weather phenomenon. Pain didn't just create a technique, he turned an entire village into his personal security network, and nobody even knew it was happening. Let me paint the picture for you. Pain creates rain clouds from his own chakra. These aren't natural clouds. Every single raindrop falling from the sky is infused with his chakra and linked directly to his senses. The entire hidden rain village is blanketed by this technique constantly. We're talking about an area covering an entire settlement, with millions of raindrops acting as individual sensors. The scale alone is staggering. No other sensing technique in the series even comes close to covering this much ground simultaneously. Here's what makes it truly genius. When you walk into a Megakura, you see rain, just regular rain. The village is known for constant rainfall, so you don't question it. You don't think twice about it. You definitely don't realize that every drop touching your body is reporting your presence to Pain. Even if you're a skilled shinobi who knows to mask your chakra, the moment those raindrops hit you, your presence is compromised. You can't avoid rain. You can't hide from it. It's everywhere, all at once, always falling. Now, the technique does have a limitation. Pain can detect that someone entered the village, but he can't pinpoint exactly where they are. He knows you're there, but he needs additional support to narrow down your specific location. Some people look at this as a weakness, but think about what it actually means. In the time it takes you to realize you've been detected, Pain has already mobilized his forces. You're not dealing with one person anymore. You're dealing with an entire organization that knows an intruder is in their territory. The advantage is still completely in his favor. When he left the village, he kept the technique active. This wasn't a jutsu he used occasionally. This was a permanent installation. A constant, unblinking eye over everything he controlled. The name itself tells you everything about the philosophy behind it. The tiger is known for watching over its territory with absolute vigilance, patrolling vast distances and guarding what's theirs with ferocity. That's exactly what this technique does. It's not just sensing, it's dominance. It's control. It's Pain telling everyone in that village that nothing happens without him knowing about it. Tell me I'm wrong about this being the most oppressive sensing technique in the entire series. I'll wait. Sensing water sphere. Let's talk about the sensing water sphere because this is where we see the evolution of sensing techniques into command center tools. This isn't something you use in the field for yourself. This is what you use when you're coordinating an entire operation from headquarters. The technique works by creating a sphere of water that displays chakra signatures as bubbles inside it. The size of each bubble corresponds to the strength of that person's chakra signature. So immediately, you're getting a visual representation of who you're dealing with. Is that a Genin-level threat, or are you looking at a Kage-level chakra signature? The bubble size tells you before anyone makes contact. That's the kind of intel that saves lives in a war scenario. Now here's the thing people need to understand about this technique. It's not precise. You're not going to pinpoint someone's exact GPS coordinates with this. What you get is area monitoring and threat assessment. You know there's a large chakra signature in the eastern sector, but you need field reports to narrow down the specifics. That sounds like a weakness until you realize what this technique is actually designed for. It's a strategic overview tool. You're meant to pair this with barrier teams and recon units. When the sphere detects movement, you dispatch your people to investigate. It's the nerve center of a sensory network. The real power shows when you link it with a sensing barrier. Suddenly, that imprecision gets tightened up significantly. You're combining wide area surveillance with defined perimeters, and now you've got yourself a legitimate defense system. This is military-grade sensing, and honestly, it's underrated for large-scale operations. Negative emotions, sensing. We need to talk about what might be the most underrated game changer in the entire Fourth Shinobi World War. Negative emotions. Sensing is a technique that goes beyond physical detection and dives straight into the psychological warfare arena. This isn't about finding where someone is, this is about exposing who they really are. The technique originates with Kurama, the Nine Tails itself. For centuries, this beast could sense hostility, hatred, and killing intent radiating from people around it. Think about what that means. You can't hide your true feelings from this ability. You can mask your chakra signature, you can disguise your appearance, you can lie with your words, but if there's malice in your heart, Kurama knows. It's reading the emotional frequency you're broadcasting whether you realize it or not. This is how Kurama kept finding Naruto's inner hatred and using it to chip away at the seal containing it. The fox wasn't just trapped, it was actively weaponizing Naruto's own darkness against him. When Naruto unlocked the Nine Tails chakra mode, he inherited this ability, and this is where it became absolutely critical on a tactical level. Remember when Kisame hid inside Samehada? Everyone was fooled because Kisame and the sword shared the exact same chakra signature. Standard sensing techniques were completely useless. But Naruto sensed the killing intent, the hostile emotions bleeding through, and exposed him immediately. That's the advantage here. Chakra signatures can be matched, copied, or hidden. Emotions? Those are raw and unfiltered. You can't fake not wanting to kill someone when you absolutely do want to kill them. The real moment this technique proved its worth was during the White Zetsu infiltration crisis. The Allied shinobi forces were being torn apart from the inside because White Zetsu clones could perfectly mimic anyone's appearance and chakra. Paranoia was setting in. Friends were attacking friends because nobody knew who to trust anymore. Then, Naruto shows up, and he can identify every single disguised enemy by sensing their malicious intent. Now here's something interesting that doesn't get talked about enough. Minato had full control of Yin Kurama sealed inside him, but he never demonstrated this ability. We don't know if he simply didn't have time to explore it, or if there's something specific about Naruto's connection to Kurama that made it possible. That's a question that genuinely bothers me because if Minato had access to this during his lifetime, imagine how different things could have been. Concealed Sand Picture Cat. Here's a technique that perfectly showcases why Gaara is so terrifying to fight against. The Concealed Sand Picture. Cat takes everything we know about sand manipulation and turns it into a sensory net that you literally cannot escape. Gaara disperses chakra-infused sand across a massive area. We're talking wide terrain coverage that can blanket an entire battlefield. But here's where it gets really nasty. That sand doesn't just sit on the ground. It can float in the air, creating a three-dimensional detection grid. You can't fly over it, you can't tunnel under it, and you definitely can't walk through it. The moment any part of your body makes contact with even a single grain of that sand, Gaara knows exactly where you are. What makes this technique absolutely broken is what happens after detection. The sand doesn't just sense you and call it a day. Once it makes contact, it wraps around you and reveals your position visually. You know what that means? Invisibility techniques become completely worthless. This is exactly how Gaara exposed Mu, the second Tsuchikage, who was using his invisibility jutsu. The name itself is brilliant when you understand the reference. Sandcats are desert animals that can walk across sand without leaving footprints. They're ghosts in their environment, nearly impossible to track. But Gaara's technique does the opposite. It forces you to leave traces. It makes the invisible visible. It turns the hunter into the hunted. When Mu got caught, the anime specifically focused on his footprints in the sand, driving home that symbolism. You can't hide your steps from this technique. The tactical implications are insane. Gaara can set this up preemptively and just wait. He doesn't need to actively search for enemies or maintain intense focus. The sand does the work for him. And because it covers such a wide area and operates in 3 dimensions, your options for approaching him become extremely limited. You're basically announcing your presence the moment you enter his domain. Now tell me, how do you counter this technique without ranged attacks? Because I honestly can't think of a way to get close to Gaara once this is active. Sensing transmission. Let's talk about what happens when you turn individual sensing into a team sport. Sensing transmission is one of those techniques that sounds simple on paper, but completely changes how shinobi forces coordinate in the field. Here's how it works. A sensor makes physical contact with another person and directly transmits everything they're sensing straight into that person's mind. You're not just getting a verbal report or pointing at a map. You're experiencing their sensory perception in real time like it's your own. That target can then pass it along to someone else they're connected to, whether through physical touch or techniques like shadow possession. Suddenly, one sensor's awareness is spreading through an entire squad like a network. The power here is in eliminating communication delays and misunderstandings. In combat, the difference between saying enemy approaching from the east and someone actually feeling that presence through transmitted perception could mean life or death. There's no room for miscommunication when the intel is being downloaded directly into your brain. This technique essentially turns every member of a unit into a sensor, even if they have 0 natural sensing ability themselves. That's a force multiplier you can't ignore, and honestly, I think more shinobi should have learned this instead of just relying on dedicated sensor types. Sensing barrier. We need to talk about the foundation of village defense in the Naruto world. The sensing barrier is what stands between a hidden village and complete chaos, and Konohagakure's version is one of the most sophisticated security systems we see in the entire series. This is a dome-shaped barrier that covers the entire village, invisible to normal eyes, but absolutely critical to keeping threats out. Here's what makes this technique special. The barrier itself is massive, wrapping around the whole village in a protective shell. You can't see it with regular vision, but if you look at it with certain dojutsu, you'll spot these circular patterns inscribed with kanji for boundary and barrier. It's like a giant seal written in the air itself. The real power comes when you link it with a sensing water sphere, because that's when it transforms from a simple detection system into a precision security network. Any unauthorized entry or exit gets detected and pinpointed immediately. You're not just setting off an alarm, you're telling the barrier team exactly where the breach happened. Now here's where things get interesting, and this is where the politics and personal relationships start interfering with security. The third Hokage made a promise to Itachi Uchiha that he wouldn't change the barrier's formula. Why? So Itachi could sneak back into the village to watch over Sasuke. Think about that for a second. The Hokage deliberately left a backdoor in Konoha's primary defense system. After Orochimaru's invasion, Itachi and Kisame walked right into the village undetected because Itachi, as a former Anbu member, knew exactly how to bypass the barrier. That knowledge should have been invalidated the moment Itachi defected, but because the formula stayed the same, Konoha remained vulnerable. And it gets worse. Koji Kashin, who is literally a clone of the long-dead Jiraiya, was able to pass through the barrier without triggering anything. The barrier team maintains this thing constantly, which means it's resource-intensive but considered absolutely necessary. The question is whether the system is actually as secure as Konoha thinks it is, or if too many compromises and legacy protocols have turned it into security theater. Water flow sensing technique. The water flow sensing technique lets you create a stream of water and sense everything around that flow. It sounds straightforward until you realize the physical toll it takes on your body. The user generates a water stream that acts as their sensory extension, detecting anything in the flow's surroundings. But here's the catch that makes this technique brutal. The strain is real and immediate. We're talking sweating, bloody nose, the whole 9 yards from prolonged use. Your body is paying a price for extending your awareness through that water. That raises the question, is the intel worth bleeding over? For specific situations where you need to track something through tight spaces or unusual terrain, maybe? But as a go-to sensing method? That's debatable, and I'm betting most of you wouldn't choose this over less painful options. Aburame insect sensing. Let's talk about why the Aburame clan consistently produces some of the most effective sensory ninja in the entire shinobi world. Their insect-based sensing technique is one of those abilities that doesn't get flashy screen time, but is absolutely devastating when you break down what it actually does. The Aburame's relationship with their insects gives them a sensing network that operates on a completely different level from standard techniques. They deploy their insects across massive areas, and because these bugs are small, numerous, and can spread out in ways humans simply cannot, the coverage they achieve is ridiculous. We're talking about hundreds or thousands of individual sensory points all feeding information back to a single user simultaneously. Each insect acts like a miniature radar ping, and when you combine all of them together, you get a real-time map of everything happening in that entire zone. But here's what really sets this technique apart. The insects themselves carry chakra, which means they can interact with and detect other sensing techniques. The Aburame aren't just sensing on their own, they're amplifying and complementing whatever sensory systems are already in place. This is why you see so many Aburame clan members in dedicated sensing divisions. They're not there because they're specialists in one narrow application. They're there because their technique is a force multiplier for the entire team. One Aburame enhances the effectiveness of every other sensor working alongside them. The coverage, the redundancy, the ability to interface with other sensory methods. That's the Aburame advantage. And it's why they've earned their reputation as elite sensors, despite not having some flashy dojutsu or legendary bloodline ability. Sometimes the most effective tool is the one that just works consistently at scale. Sage mode sensing. We need to talk about what happens when you stop sensing chakra like a human and start sensing it like the world itself does. Sage mode doesn't just give you a power boost, it fundamentally changes how you perceive everything around you. This is sensing on a level that most shinobi will never experience in their entire lives. When you activate Sage mode, you're tapping into natural energy and connecting yourself to the environment in a way that's almost impossible to describe if you haven't felt it. You're reading the flow of nature itself. Every disturbance in that flow, every shift in the natural energy around you, becomes information. You don't need to see an attack coming because you feel it through the disruption it creates in the natural world. Someone throws a kunai in complete darkness? You sense the air displacement, the change in natural energy as the weapon moves through space. An enemy tries to sneak up behind you? The moment they enter your sensory range, they're disrupting the natural flow, and you know exactly where they are. This is why Sage Mode users can fight in total darkness without any disadvantage whatsoever. Vision becomes optional when you're sensing through the environment itself. Naruto demonstrated the absurd range of this ability when he sensed chakra signatures across the entire village and could identify who each signature belonged to. That's not just detection, that's recognition at a village-wide scale. The advantage here is that you're not relying on a single sensory input. You're processing information from the entire natural world around you simultaneously. It's omnidirectional, it's constant, and it doesn't require active focus the way standard sensing techniques do. You're not searching for enemies, you're simply aware of everything within your range because it's all part of the same connected system you've tapped into. That's what makes Sage Mode sensing so overpowered compared to conventional methods. You're not just better at sensing, you're operating on a completely different level of awareness. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.